It's nearly the end of the year, and I've been up to much. I actually have, for once, to be fair. I've not filled my year with random nonsense, for once, which is great. I've actually been doing stuff of value. So, for this video, it's not going to be anything major, not going to be like a rewind or highlights, because to be honest, I think I only have 8 videos out this year. I'll just put them in a playlist down below. You can watch that if you want. So, what I am going to do is talk about, shocker, video games. My top 5 games of 2023. And they probably won't shock you if you know me. Particularly everyone in my class at uni who has now found my channel. Hi everyone. Top 5 games. Let's get started. So, my 5th favourite game of 2023 was Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty. Phantom Liberty is the first and final massive expansion to Cyberpunk 2077, adding the new area, Dogtown, and also new characters, side quests, and a new full game ending. A lot was riding on this expansion's shoulders, carrying a promise to players that the game is finally in the polished state that it should have been when it was first released in 2020. The end result of all this? Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty is one of the greatest expansions to an RPG I have ever played. On top of gameplay changes such as a fully reworked skill tree system, tightened vehicle controls, vehicle combat, and also a full rework to the Night City Police Department and their chases, the game feels brand new. Not to mention, all these changes are actually available for free. You do not need to own Phantom Liberty to experience the new features. They are in the base game. Government intrigue and espionage are at the heart of the story of Phantom Liberty. With V getting involved in the in-world equivalent of the CIA, he is thrust into a world of suspicion and distrust, and that feeling is never more prevalent than with the characters of Phantom Liberty. They are fun, engaging, and compelling, all with their own motives and objectives, and it's up to V to decide who to trust, if anybody at all. Returning to Cyberpunk after 2 years, it felt like an entirely new game, which makes it all the more intriguing to wonder, what if its original 2020 release date got delayed, and instead, it released when Phantom Liberty launched this year? I believe it would have been lauded as a contender for Game of the Year. However, that is not the case. In reality, with the release of this final major update, it finally stands on its own as one of the quintessential redemption arcs for a game release in recent years. Wow, that's a tongue twister. And I must congratulate all the developers who worked on it to make it that way, some of whom were unfortunately laid off by that same company earlier this year, and the remaining staff unionised, preventing that from happening again, which is just absolutely fantastic. Go unions. And coming in at number 4, which may surprise people, it's Resident Evil 4. If you thought this would be higher, I will explain. It was a tough call between 4th and 3rd in this list, for sure, and I will explain why one beat out the other. Resident Evil 4 was one of the games I was most looking forward to this year, with Capcom's latest run of Resident Evil titles being absolutely fantastic, except the RE3 remake, which was... It was passable. It could have been DLC for the RE2 remake, but, you know, hey-ho. And not to mention my channel arguably being built on the hype of Resident Evil Village. I was so excited to see how they would reimagine Resident Evil 4. The end result of this is fantastic. It stands on its own as a fantastic horror third-person shooter experience, with the parts that needed to be updated, particularly with characters like Ashley being a vast improvement, and what is the same being brought back and updated to feel like new. A personal highlight being the combat, with close quarters combat that echoes the original Resident Evil 4, but with a naturally updated spin with free range of movement and also the parry system. These new and updated additions create the most fluid combat I've seen in the remake series by far. It's never more apparent than in the Mercenaries mode. Just a slight tangent, but I actually played the Mercenaries mode for the first time to get footage for this video, and I found myself actually really enjoying it to a point I was a little annoyed at myself that I didn't give it a chance up until now. So I'll just quickly say that the Mercenaries mode is excellent and just the kind of exciting, repetitive gameplay loop that scratches my brain. Being a massive Call of Duty Zombies fan, I enjoy repetitive. One other part that I absolutely loved/despised was the first encounters with the regenerators, which, now that I've mentioned them, I have to get footage of me fighting them. Yay! They still hold the title of the most distressing enemy in a Resident Evil game, with the Resident Evil Village Fetus Baby coming in a close second place. The Regenerator's movement is some of the most unsettling animations I've seen in a game. It is genuinely uncomfortable to watch them move, something that is absolutely hellbent on getting to you no matter what appendages get blown off next. What made this section all the more worse is my own stupidity. I went into this area vastly under-equipped. I did not know about the thermal scope trick that highlighted their weak points, and by the time I realised this, I didn't even have a weapon that I could equip the scope to. So I had to reload a save up enough money to buy a gun, which wasn't easy at all, and equipped it there and then. Resident Evil 4 Remake may not be as iconic as its predecessor, but that is a remarkably high bar to clear. But I can say that without a doubt, it stands on its own merits and is a brilliant entry not just into the remake series, but in modern horror video games as a whole. Okay, and number 3. Ooh, what be out, Resident Evil 4? It was actually the Dead Space remake. Now, it may come as a shock to some of you that I rated Dead Space above Resident Evil 4. I admit the difference in how much I enjoyed them is marginal, believe me. The original Dead Space does sci-fi horror like no game I've ever seen or played. I believe a lot of that comes from its eerie and unsettling use of sound and its story-rich environments. The way the Ishimura tells the story of a station full of people that slowly went insane and eventually mutated into the biological horrors that plague you throughout the game is incredible. In the remake, they not only enhance this, but also add to it with all the bells and whistles modern technology offers, with amazing set pieces and design that, in my opinion, surpass the original in every way. The differences offered in the Dead Space remake go further than just skin deep, which is actually quite amusing, as I had no idea the changes were so vast, such as no loading screens, and seamless travel between sections through the tram system. But one of the biggest things is that it's immediately noticeable that Isaac Clarke now has a voice. Something he didn't have in the original Dead Space, but he did have in the sequel, Dead Space 2. I enjoyed the depth this brought to his character, as it allows you to put yourself in Isaac's shoes better than if he was silent, also providing a better insight into the toll the fight to survive is taking on his sanity. Like when you're constantly stomping on enemies later in the game, Isaac's screaming out in an almost bloodthirsty rage.
Son of a bitch! You piece of shit!
For all these small but rather significant changes, the game is still very much at its heart a phenomenal retelling of a classic horror game. It's clear that the developers understood the assignment, to make a technologically superior version of the original, but in doing so, not losing sight of what made it so iconic. The remake not only understands and expands on the original, but it also honours it, and by doing this, in my opinion, it has become the quintessential way to experience Dead Space horror. Not to mention, they sent out a survey asking people if they wanted to see a Dead Space 2 and 3 remake, and yeah, I want that. I really need that. We are now in the top 2. If you have watched my last video, you'll know what the order for this already is. So that's a spoiler. But I will just say that my second favourite game of 2023 is Boulders Gate 3. For me, Boulders Gate 3 was a sleeper hit. A game that I wasn't aware of or fussed about playing in the first place. One that I initially discarded easily, as I'm not usually a fan of the format. But I took a chance on it when my partner mentioned she was getting it, and it's got multiplayer, so it'll be a nice chill co-op experience. She picked the Dark Urge character. What I saw was anything but chill. She chewed off Gale's hand and he's dead. What immediately captured me about this game was the characters and the voices that helped bring them to life, with standout performances like Devora Wild, who voiced Lae'zel, and Neil Newbon, who voiced Astarion, who also bagged a well-earned Best Performance Award at this year's Game Awards. It's just a shame they cut off his speech so they could plug all their mobile game ads. Boulders Gate 3 has some of the best written side characters I've ever seen in a video game. It's very rare that a game has characters with absolutely no weak links. All of them shine with memorable stories and dialogues. It's a game that makes you want to expend all the dialogue options available with these characters. The actors and the writers have come together perfectly, and simply put, the characters feel alive. You care about them and what they think. The number of times I've come into genuine conflict with a character, always Astarion, never anyone else, always Astarion, he hates my Oath of Vengeance paladin so much, with an intensity that felt so real, it's something I haven't encountered in any game so far. The gameplay loop also never gets old. It keeps you on your toes throughout. Anything can happen at any time. It will always have you guessing, was that scripted to happen, or was that purely random? I've noticed that whether by your actions or the actions of the NPCs in the world around you, the resultant gameplay can be outright comedic, with the vibes of something out of a sketch comedy. Without trying to, I got a small but perfect example of this when I hopped back on the game to get footage for this video. Allow me to tell you a story of when me and my party decided to go into the sewers of Boulders Gate. I come across these Baal cultists. Now, Baal is the Lord of Murder, if I've got that right. I'm sure my partner will correct me if I'm wrong. They are attacking a group of refugees who have taken shelter in the sewers of the city. My Oath of Vengeance paladin, being the big, strong hero he is like, no, I won't allow this at all. I engage in combat with them. Me and the boys take them out. Easy as that. I think I might have blown up one of the refugees accidentally. I'll review the footage, but I think it just missed them. So we engage them in combat, they're all dead, we win, and then we go on with our day. No thank yous necessary. The refugees run, and they run through these big double doors. And I turn around, and I can see these orange numbers on my screen. Now these orange numbers indicate fire damage. I open the door, and it's their charred corpses. They'd run away and run into tripwires, which I then also did because I went with them. That is a very small instance of a game where it makes it abundantly clear anything can happen. Bottom line, a game like Boulders Gate 3 requires more than a small segment in this video. It requires a full in-depth review, which I hope to do in the new year. With all this being said, for a good long while after launch, Boulders Gate 3 was the best game I played all year. While this is no longer true, it has still cemented itself as the best RPG I have ever played. What Larian Studios has achieved with Boulders Gate 3 is nothing short of a modern day masterpiece that, to echo many other sentiments about this game, sets the bar for what a modern RPG can be. And I think it will be a very long time before we see anything that can come close that isn't made by Larian Studios themselves. Now we're on to number one, which will shock absolutely no one, particularly the people in my class who know I'm obsessed with this game. Game of the Year 2023 for me goes to Alan Wake 2. Wrong. It's actually Oppenheimer, published by yours truly, available on the Google Play Store right now. I can't afford the App Store, so it's not going to be on there. It's a Google Play Store exclusive. Look at these graphics. It's about the graphics and the gameplay and how it all gels together to create the perfect synergy of the best tie-in video game. Unofficial, have to disclose, unofficial for legality reasons. It is a unofficial tie-in game. Reviews are glowing. My mother really likes it. I'm just kidding. It is Alan Wake 2. Out of all the games that I played this year, nothing stood out to me more than Alan Wake 2. This is it. This is the one I have been most looking forward to since it was announced 1 year ago. And when it was released in October of this year, it did not disappoint in the slightest. What can be said about Alan Wake 2 but I haven't already said in my review, where I sang its praises to the heavens for a solid 12 minutes? The game is stunning in every aspect. with impressive graphics, fun gameplay, and a narrative equivalent to a cult classic art house movie. It's hard to talk about this game without retreading what my review already covered, but what my review did not cover is some new additions, one big one being New Game Plus. Alan Wake 2 is the first game I've ever played that made New Game Plus actually canon to the story, with Alan at the end of the original story of Alan Wake 2 realising that it is not a loop but a spiral, and he can still escape. And with the help of Saga on the outside and his wife, who is trapped in the dark place as well, we see Alan and Saga close the spiral. They escape the dark place, defeat Scratch, and it answered some questions, but left me with way more. And I am absolutely psyched for the next 2 DLCs that are coming out for this game, and I cannot wait to see what kind of horror they come up with. They perfected it this year, and I can't wait for them to do more with that formula next year. It's clear right from the start that Remedy put their heart and soul into this game. From Sam Lake in 2013 stating that they couldn't make the sequel to Alan Wake as they didn't have the funds, to now, 10 years later, it emerges and it is an absolute triumph and well worth the wait. And between the worlds of Control and Alan Wake, I cannot wait to see what they do with this Remedy shared universe. It is the only shared universe in existence at the moment that I actually care about, pretty much. All in all, 2023 has been a good year. A really good year. Thank you very much, by the way, for watching the videos. I've noticed that almost every video I uploaded this year has done quite well, given the size of the channel at least. So thank you all very much for watching. If you're new, hello. Stick around because the next year is going to be even better. Hopefully. I wish you all happy holidays and a lovely new year. And I shall see you all in that new year. Bye.